All right, Don, I listed some Chelsea positives because there are Chelsea positives in the performance. Lavia and Colwill. I thought Jackson put himself around. Palmer's good. But for me, it's the construction.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take Manesca time.
A long time.
To bring any kind of value add to this. You want to talk about Enzo. Well, first of all, I got a text from Mark Ogden. He's like, Enzo captain, that's a shock. And I thought to myself, why is it a shock? Is it a shock because of the Fofana incident? Is it a shock because what?
I mean, to be fair, when you probably got that text from Oggy, he was probably thinking because of the racism incident in the summer, might have been a little bit clumsy from Chelsea. For match day one, you could have just easily, you could have easily give it to someone else, just to not have that conversation.
But that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
The Chelsea team's so young.
Yeah, give it to Raheem Sterling. I know he wasn't in the squad.
I mean, it is one of those, right? Like, I don't have an issue with it if the situation with Fofana and Enzo is cleared up and he's done that. I don't see that. Reece James is the club captain, although
injured again.
Him. Yeah, the vice captain is Chilwell, who may not be around. It's a whole other issue. That's another thing you have to show up. But for me, like, we make too big a deal out of it. On the pitch, his performance, he looked like a very frustrated guy.
Enzo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he looked...
I'm always critical when I see Bruno Fernandes at Man United throw his arms up in the air and blame everyone else. Enzo Fernandez is now starting to do the same thing. And let me tell you, Gab, players in the Chelsea team will absolutely hate him for it. Because he's more or less saying, I'm too good for this. Like, why are you not making runs? Like, I'm on another level to use lot, so I'm throwing my hands in the air. So it's a very arrogant thing to do for someone that's been through the door 5 minutes. And by the way, not convincing. I watched every Chelsea pre-season game, and he weren't great. For someone that cost 100 million, and maybe the fee's the fee, and it is whatever it is. But this guy's a World Cup winner, and he's gone into Chelsea. You expect a lot more, and you expect him to be sort of, even if he hasn't got the armband, captain material. Start organising, start playing for the team. Whereas I think he's starting to look a little bit selfish. And I see him disappearing a lot in games. For a guy that's cost an awful lot of money, with a big reputation, he's not really contributing a lot.
I'm also not sure that that's his best position either. I don't.
Number 10 is not. No,
go with a more traditional 4-3-3.
Yeah.
Let him get forward.
But just in general, you can have a good attitude on the pitch. It doesn't matter what position you're playing in. Your body language can look good, and it can look really bad.
I don't think Erling Haaland is a big fan of Enzo either, judging, or Cucurella for that matter. It's really, you just say on Haaland. And Haaland, by the way, like, I thought that goal was, a bit of luck with Bernardo Silva, but then maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe Bernardo really meant that.
But the touch was good. But the finish was calm. The finish was someone of...
But what gets me is, you often talk about how a footballer's brain is like a computer, right?
Yeah.
To be able to, you need to have adrenaline, physicality to be able to shake off Fofana and Cucurella the way he did, right?
Yeah.
So you're sort of pounding through there, and then in the blink of an eye, all of a sudden everything's calm.
Yeah.
And you kind of dink it
Yeah.
over Sanchez. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
And that's why it shows you his mentality, because we always talk about Erling Haaland. It's a theme that happens every week. Hardly touched the ball. Only had about 10 touches, but every time he gets in front of goal, he's got different types of finishes. It's almost like when you're going through, what you've got to try and decide when you're going through 1v1 is, in your Rolodex of finishes, what's the easiest finish that I want to go for? What's the best finish I can go for? And once you see Sanchez diving along the floor, the easiest finish, if you can try and wrap your Rolodex and go through a million finishes in your head, was the dink. So to have that calmness under pressure...
Right.
So, mate, 100 appearances, 91 goals. The numbers speak for themselves.
Just like Nico Jackson, that calmness under pressure. By the way, that finish with Jackson, where he shot it kind of directly at Ederson. Again, is that something that's going to be fixed with age?
You'd like to think so. I mean,
you're
yes.
2 feet away from him. I know he's got a large body, but just put it anywhere not other than central, and that could have turned the game.
Yeah, it could have. I mean, I had the feeling when I was watching the game, Chelsea had a good probably 15 minutes in the second half, but I was sitting watching the game and I said to my pal, I went, City will score again. Because City played the game. City played the game like it was the first day of the season. A lot of their first team players were on the pitch. A lot of the first team players that started or were on the pitch, Phil Foden's probably, I think he came in at half time, but I'm not sure if he started too many games in pre-season. I don't think he did. So when you're trying to evaluate and what you're watching a team like City and a lot of Premier League teams, because it's the first game, is when you keep hold of the ball, you're keeping it because you're a little bit tired and you're not quite sharp. It's when you're sharp, you might spin in behind, like the Salah second goal, you start running that way. When you first game in, you think, well, I can't do 60-yard runs. So everything comes to feet, and then the patterns of play can sort of link up. They can be a little bit unrealistic because sometimes the best thing to do is run off the ball. So from City's point of view, away from home, up against a potentially difficult opponent, you stick 3 points on the board. A lot of the first team players, as we mentioned, sitting on the bench. Job done.
Final point on City. You talked about with Alvarez gone, they need another center forward.
Yeah. I think it'll be someone like a South American, like an Alvarez. It'll be someone that we've not particularly heard of. As in it won't be. No, as in it won't be an Ollie Watkins. It won't be an Ivan Toney. It'll be someone that's
a South American we haven't.
No, well, no.
I don't know how you put that.
No, well, I did because you know what I mean. It might be someone a little bit left field where you're going to have to convince someone to sit on the bench behind Haaland.
Oh, that's a really tough ask.
Well,
I don't know. I wondered about sort of the profile of player, and do you get somebody who can do Haaland type things, or do you get a
no? I think it'll be different. It'll be an Alvarez. It'll be someone that's willing to have a season under Pep, to understand that he's going to play behind in terms of sitting on the bench behind Haaland. Someone that when's needed in the Carabao Cup and some domestic games he'll play, but not the very biggest of games because Haaland can't play 65 games a season across all competitions. As a number 9, every minute he can't.
I agree with you. I think that's something that should be that will be a priority for him. It would be weird. I mean, Pep likes to do unusual things, right? Yeah. We've seen that, and so maybe he won't do it.
And he's got a bit of money to play with, by the way, because 95 million for Alvarez? I mean, that is some fee.
I think it's
add-ons, but still.
I think it's substantially less than that. Actually, I think it's more like 65, and I think.
I don't think it is. Might be wrong.
Well, a base payment, and plus it's Atleti, so who knows? But whatever. I'm being unkind there. We kid because we love. No, I completely agree with you. I think it's an imperative. Because what you don't want to do is like, look, they can beat you. They can play Foden at center forward. They can play De Bruyne at center. They can beat you different ways, right?
Yeah.
But
you can't afford a Haaland.
You don't want to have a situation where Haaland is out
for a month,
and then you have and then you have to change everything about the way the team play, right?
Yeah.
So I like the other option. You guys can fill in, but you should have a guy fill in who can make comparable runs, who can do some of the same thing. Doesn't need to be a 6'5" Haaland.
I mean, he's won the league before without a recognised striker. Won the league with a false 9, didn't he, Pep? But the season after he went and bought Haaland. So
but that was Raheem Sterling.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But that's different.
Yeah, but so to your point, he can do the Phil Foden, De Bruyne false 9. Bernardo Silva,
but just
whatever.
At this stage, Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne are older. Foden's kind of established in a different role. So I think somebody.
That's why I think he'll buy. Yeah, I think he'll buy.
I'd be very surprised if it doesn't happen. But then, like I said, Pep's unconventional. Moving to Chelsea, and all right.
Where do we start here?
Okay, let's start very, very simply, right? There is one thing is a function of another, right? The fact that they have 42 players under contract, and whatever. And look, when we say that, some ways we're kind of unkind because the list includes, like, seventh choice keeper, who's a kid, who is going to move on, whatever, right?
Doesn't matter. Still 42, and they've got 7 goalkeepers.
And the list includes people who won't be back, like Lukaku. The reason we're in this situation, and I've touched upon this before, is a business stroke sporting model that Chelsea have, where essentially they view these players as assets. It's a financialization of football, and they're going to balance the books by acquiring all the best young assets around, or as many as they can.
I'm not sure young. I'm not sure the best.
Well, if you speak to scouts and nerds, really follow this stuff. They've gotten an incredible proportion of the guys everybody wanted. I mean, these people aren't even here yet, like Kendry Pies or not. They may or may not work out, but this is what they've done, right? And then they don't pay them a lot of money. They will pay high fees for them. And then they're going to balance it out by letting others go because you can't go into the season with 42 players or even 30 players, right? Yeah. What I struggle with is the execution of this model. In other words, Ben Chilwell now is somebody who's supposedly surplus to requirements.
Yeah.
Fine, right?
Yeah.
But if this comes out now with 10 days left in the window,
But also,
or if you wait on Lukaku, right? So if you go,
but it's a terrible business model because you're saying all of a sudden Bell Chilwell's for sale, and someone will go, oh, okay, well, I'll give you 1 million then because I know you're desperate to sell him.
But that's what I mean. They got to the situation. Whereas Raheem Sterling, for example, right?
Yeah.
Raheem Sterling, you sort of summed up what he came out with. I don't disagree. You can debate going on, whatever. He makes a ton of money. It makes sense for Chelsea to move him on, right? Because they need to get within profit and sustainability rules.
That's their problem, by the way.
That's fine. If you prepare the groundwork in April, May, and you say, Raheem, Poch is going. We're going to get Maresca in. You don't fit our business model anymore.
Yeah.
Let's try to quietly find you a home because you're still a good player, and find an arrangement where we don't look desperate to sell.
Yeah.
So that we can get decent money back, but we're in a position where
you have the conversation, Gab. If you owe the player 39 million, you can have a conversation. You can start by saying the handshake, and we'll move on in good terms, and we'll say nice things about you. Likewise,
and we'll try to get a reasonable fee.
And by the way, we'll give you £20 million.
Well,
now he might say, well, all right, I want 30. So there's a middle ground
you're
somewhere.
Talking about releasing him. That's completely different. I think you could have moved.
But who's going to buy him when he's on 250 a week?
Because he signs a longer term contract. Because the way
he's got 3 years left.
But this is the skill, right? If you approach it in the right way, look, nobody's going back in time and saying this was a good signing. This made a lot of sense, right? But you have to approach it in some ways in the right way so that you can minimize your risk to you, right? And you say, look, Raheem, you can go back. You have a full preseason. There was a World Cup in 2026. Find you the right club, guy you want to work with. Where do you want to go? Can we talk to them? The guy's got ambition. He's made a ton of money already. He's got 3 years left. Maybe he takes a pay cut, but in exchange for a 5-year contract.
No, it's Chelsea's problem. I've been in Raheem Sterling's shoes.
It's not. Hang on.
Sorry,
Hang on. Let me finish on this.
Because I want to go back to pre-season.
Let me finish on this one, right? It's not Chelsea's problem.
It is Chelsea's problem.
It's Raheem Sterling's.
Chelsea was stupid enough to put him on £250,000 a week, and he's got 3 years left. Okay. It's Chelsea's problem.
All I'm saying is, right, I agree. The deal was a bad one. But what I'm saying is, there was a way to mitigate it if you had been competent in handling the situation, handling Ben Chilwell, handling many of these situations. Not 3 years ago. Anybody can time travel and make a different decision. But I'm saying going back to May, you approach the window differently, and you speak to these people and their agents, and you have good relationships with them.
I agree with that, yeah.
How can we have the best solution?
Yes.
Because if the solution ends up being Raheem Sterling stays at Chelsea for another 6 months and never plays, that's not good for Raheem Sterling either. No. So you could have come up with a mutually beneficial thing that would have made it. Now you're totally up against the wall.
I agree.
And the guy makes an absolute mint. You'll probably end up loaning. It'll be a Lukaku situation.
You'll be paying his wages somewhere. Chelsea.
Exactly.
But what I want to go back to is the pre-season that Raheem Sterling had. And Raheem Sterling had a very good pre-season. And when a player like Raheem Sterling comes out with a statement, you've got to try and look at the things that he hasn't said. And I talked about the 39 million and how much he's owed, and that's Chelsea's problem. If they want to get rid, they've got to pay him off. But when you're someone like Raheem Sterling, because I've been there, and you look at the pre-season that he's had, he's thinking, I've had a better pre-season than Madueke. I've had a better pre-season than Mykhailo Mudryk. So the chances are, on match day 1 against my former club, there's every chance the pre-season that I've had.
But this
hang on, I'm going to be in the squad.
Yeah, okay,
he didn't even make the squad.
But this is where the people who look after Raheem Sterling need to do their job well as too.
They've done their job.
And say, Raheem, no. Raheem, these guys want you out.
Read between the lines. The statement that they've made.
I don't care about their statement. I'm talking about what they say to Raheem, not what they say to the Daily Mail.
You don't know what they've said to Raheem. I know the conversation. So since
you know the conversation,
If
Raheem Sterling thought, "Oh, look, I had a better preseason than Madueke,"
I know the conversation.
I'll be in the team.
No, I know the conversation. I do know the conversation.
You don't fit the business model.
The conversation between Raheem Sterling and his camp is we are going to make a statement, and Raheem Sterling's complicit in this because we're going to put it back onto Chelsea. Because they're going to try and pay us up. So we've got to say we love the club, we love the fans.
I get all that.
Right?
I get all that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
all of that's been said a million times.
You said earlier, Sterling had a great preseason.
He did.
And so on, so he would have expected to be in the side.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. If he expected to be in the side...
That's why he's fuming, because he wasn't.
Okay. Then either his agents...
It's got nothing to do with his agents.
Of course he had.
It's Chelsea trying to force him out the club, Gab.
No,
it's a standard. It is, Gab. You don't. I've been there, Gab.
No, Don.
It's a standard move. I am listening.
Don, you're not listening.
They've done it to Conor Gallagher. They've done it to Trevor Chalobah.
Don, you're not listening. Listen to me one second.
Go on.
Chalobah, especially Chalobah, Gallagher, Sterling, all these people should have known that it doesn't matter what they do in preseason, especially Sterling. Chelsea, he doesn't fit their business model anymore. They cannot afford to keep him.
So like you said, why didn't they have that conversation 3 months ago? That's what should have happened.
Yes. Again, maybe they did. Look, maybe they did. But if Sterling really went into it and saying like, oh, look, the gaffer's giving me a chance and I play better than these guys, I'll be in the starting. It's like, the reality is, dude, pick up a freaking newspaper once in a while. Look at Chelsea's books. Talk to your agents whose job it is to do this. And I think the agents did tell him. And I don't think Sterling was under any illusion. I think Sterling knew it was going to end up this way. I think he was disappointed because he probably looked Maresca in the eye and said, and Maresca, poor guy.
But what did Maresca say at the weekend? He said it was a technical decision. Rubbish.
Yeah, whatever.
Rubbish.
Yeah, okay. But unfortunately, that's part of coach's job.
Maresca's just batting it off. Because Maresca wants no part of the conversation. He's just saying...
Maresca's inherited this mess.
That's what I'm saying. My sporting directors will take care of that.
Exactly.
So what he said is just...
But I'm saying is, I don't believe that Sterling all of a sudden was shocked by this. They knew this was coming.
I would tend to disagree because you wouldn't play the minutes that you played in pre-season. If you knew that you were going to go in at the first couple of games of the season not starting, the likelihood is the manager's not going to play you in pre-season. The message would be given in pre-season when you sat on the bench. When you're in America and you're sat on the bench and the bench and the bench and the bench, you go, actually, I've got no plans here. When you're starting and you're playing well, you think, I've got a chance here.
Unless, Don, you want to pretend that Sterling's still a valued asset so that you can get a good transfer fee for him.
But we're concentrating on Raheem Sterling. This is just not a one-player move. They're doing it with Trevor Chalobah. They're doing it with Conor Gallagher. They're doing it with Ben Chilwell.
They're doing it with your pal Lukaku too.
They're doing it because they're desperate to get money through the door. They're desperate to sell players because they've got 42 players.
I have no idea how this goes, how this is going to end up. I really don't. I have no idea how they're going to square the books.
I've got every idea how it'll end up.
What do you think's going to happen?
Well, they'll end up paying the players a large chunk to go. So if Raheem Sterling,
which means if that happens, they're going to be screwed with PSR at least for this window.
No. They'll sell the players for a cheaper amount, but they'll also pay them off.
Right.
So
instead of giving Raheem Sterling, screwed with PSR this window.
It's PSR's rubbish anyway. I can't stand the thing, and that's what's got Chelsea in a mess.
What do you mean?
It's got Aston Villa in a mess.
No.
It's got Newcastle in a mess.
I think what's really important for credibility, for transparency, is that if they can't make this work PSR wise, and right now I don't see how they can, but maybe they can. Maybe something.
Do you know what I half love?
Hang on, let me finish for a second. Right, is that they apply the rules on Chelsea, just like they did last year on Everton and on Nottingham Forest. It's really, really important that the Premier League have the cojones to do this, because I cannot have a situation where I'm telling you what the rules are, I'm speaking to you in real time, I'm talking to you about the hotels and this and that, and then you go and you spend 50 million or whatever it is on Pedro Neto, right? I cannot have that situation where I punish these other clubs.
Correct.
So I'll be really curious to see where this goes if they don't balance it.
I would half love Trevor Chalobah, Conor Gallagher, Ben Chilwell to sit and have a cup of coffee and go, I ain't going. It's got nothing to do with us, this. Right? I'm not going to make them upstairs happy because they've got themselves in a hole. I am staying here, going to enjoy my football, and I'm going to get paid. And everything that's going on with PSR and the Football Club Chelsea has nothing to do with us. I'd half love that conversation because I know what players are like inside the dressing room. And the ones I feel sorry for are the Chelsea fans. I heard Chelsea fans before, but more so after the game. And yeah, we're a little bit emotional after the game, I get it. But I listened to what they said. And they said, we can't get a grasp on our football club. You know, normally at Stamford Bridge, the atmosphere's rocking, it's buzzing. It was dead. The atmosphere was dead. The Chelsea fans...
What do you expect with those people in charge?
But Gab, my point is, it doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter what players are playing in a Chelsea shirt. The first day of the season at Stamford Bridge or anywhere, you want to have an affinity. You want to have a pull with your team. You want to try and latch onto something. It was dead. It was quiet. And the Chelsea fans at the minute are going, we haven't got a clue what's going on with our team. And the other thing, quickly, what I want to say is... the job of a manager, technical director, whoever, when you're buying players, number one rule, you've got to buy better than what you've got. You cannot tell me that Badger Shields is a better defender than Trevor Chalobah. Impossible. Chalobah played the last 6 or 7 games yet in the season. Chelsea never lost a game. You cannot tell me that people like Lavia or Dewsbury Hall are better players than Conor Gallagher. And the list goes on and on and on. So I've got no idea what they're buying.
I think Lavia, if he stays fit, if he lives up to his potential, is a better player. Dewsbury Hall, is probably a cheaper player than,
but not a better player
than what they think Conor Gallagher, what they need to pay him if they extend his contract. So I could see the logic in that one. It's a tough one, and I think
Madueke got bought about a year ago. He's up for sale again because they've got other wide players in. It's a
we'll
mess,
be
Gab. It's a
monitoring the
mess.
situation. But what's pretty obvious too, and which complicates everything for Boli and Bedadik Bali and Feliciano and the rest of the gang, is that they're succeeding an owner who was not just very successful, but insanely popular, leaving aside all the political stuff that came back with it, right? And that's why when things go badly,
Who, by the way, bought legendary players for that football club.
people still sing Roman Abramovich's name.